Hi there. In this short lecture, we will learn about Windows 11 hardware requirements. This is a Microsoft official documentation link, and this page talks about all the hardware requirements in order to install Windows 11. Obviously, Windows 10 also has some requirement of its own, but those system requirements were somewhat modest, and you could safely assume you could install Windows 10 on just about any modern PC. But Windows 11 is completely different, though, because it's a little bit more particular with regard to the system requirements. That's why we are talking about this specific topic within this course. The main or critical requirement would be TPM chip. TPM chip is nothing but a trusted platform module, which is a version 2, but any modern device these days will by default consist of TPM chip 2.0. All we have to do is we might have to enable this TPM chip 2.0 within the BIOS. Let's also have a look on other configuration, that is the system requirements, especially for the CPU or the processor. The processor must be at least 1 GHz with a 2-core processor must be there, and this processor must be a 64-bit. Okay, and coming back to the RAM memory, it's a 4 GB. It's a minimum thing what it needs, and storage at least 64 GB is needed. But again, for Windows to up to date, it might need more space. Like Windows updates, when it is getting Windows update, you might have to keep more space. And the other possible common error for you're not able to install Windows 11 would be system firmware specific. So there are two things. When we talk about the system performance, system specific, this is the one, system firmware and TPM. These are the two common errors or common requirements that might be failing these days to install Windows 11. So coming back to the system firmware, you need to have a UEFI, and also the device must be booted with secure boot. So these two things must be enabled within the BIOS configuration. And coming back to the TPM, so TPM, as we talked about TPM, that's a trusted platform module with a version 2.0. So normally the older computers will have 1.2, but now we are talking about 2.0. If you do not have a TPM 2.0, you cannot install Windows 11. And coming back to the graphics card, it needs a DirectX 12 or latest one with WDDM 2.0 driver. This is one of the requirements. You must need to have the graphic card. And also coming back to the display, at least the 720p with diagonal of 9-inch and 8-bit per color channel. So this is what it needs. And coming back to the internet, yes, for internet, Windows Home Edition is mandatory. It required because you're going to use the Microsoft account to log in to configure Windows 11 Home Edition. That's why you need the internet. Coming back to the other Windows 11 editions, it is needed for Windows updates. To perform any kind of updates or downloads, you need to have the internet. And for Windows Home S mode, which is you can only in S mode you can install only the applications from Microsoft Store. So more secure method. So this also needs the internet connectivity in just in case if you are actually switching from one mode to another mode, it needs that internet connectivity. So these are the couple of hardware requirements. But remember, these are just the minimum things. You always have to look at the higher configuration for your system, especially for the hardware. Don't just depend for 1 gig with 2 cores. If you have a more, it will definitely show the performance, because on top of your operating system, you will also install the applications. Within this course, we will be working with virtual machine to demonstrate like installation, upgradation, or all the features I would be showing from virtual machine. So let me show you the configuration, what we have to configure for your virtual machine. Let's say this is a virtual machine which is Windows 11. So just right click and go to settings, and you see here you have different options. Let's first think about the firmware, which is a secure boot. So the secure boot is enabled here, tick mark. The only difference why it is grayed out is currently the virtual machine is running. Just in case if you shut it down, this computer, you would be getting this enable or take out this checkbox. So it must need to enable state with the secure boot, and also TPM should be enabled. So in our case, TPM is enabled here on our test machine, Windows 11, and also secure boot is enabled. Coming back to the TPM on my physical machine, which is here showing as a Paddy Lab, that's a physical machine. Within this machine, we have a TPM 2.0. That's why when we enable this, the base TPM 2.0 chip will be shared for this virtual machine. And coming back to the processors, I have enabled 3 processors. And also when we look at the RAM as a requirement, we have given minimum start RAM as 6 GB, which is more than 4 GB. So we met all the hardware requirements for our lab. Hope you understood the pre-requirements out of this quick preview of Windows 11 hardware requirements. We'll catch you in the next lecture for checking the hardware compatibility with some kind of free utilities.